Welcome to the 126th episode of VFI Educates. As Ilan indicated, we're volunteers for Israel, been around for about 35 or 40 years, sending folks like some on the screens here to Israel to volunteer on IDF basis. We have regular programs. Unfortunately, since March of 2020, things have slowed down a bit in Israel, but we are now getting underway, and I just want to give you a couple of announcements before we start. And after my announcements, later on, after the presentation, questions and answers, we'll ask Jerry Fauci to give us his rundown on the latest on our favorite topic, COVID. Announcements. There is a website just started by Israel. It's called safe.israel.travel. Safe, SAFE.israel.travel. And
I'm going to put it in the chat.
Yeah, you just put that directly into your browser, and it will keep you up to date on travel matters dealing with Israel. And there's a lot of different details involved. And this website is portraying itself as an official government website that will keep people like us informed. Right. Yeah, our protocol is that we will cover the questions at the end of the presentation.
Our speaker today is Noam Tamir. At the age of 18, Noam joined the IDF and for 23 years served as a helicopter pilot in the Air Force and also did a variety of ground roles. During his service, he took part in each Israeli war starting from 1982 until today, retired as a lieutenant colonel to his second career, 9 years working for companies in the automotive industry in Israel, and now he's a tour guide since 2013, his third career.
Right.
It's all yours, Noam.
Okay, and
amazing.
just a reminder that this is a pay-as-you-wish presentation, and your support is appreciated. Noam, be'atzlacha.
Thank you. So that's all you read about me. I didn't know I did all those things, but it's okay. So good evening, everybody from Israel. I live in the city of Modi'in, that's halfway between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. And I will hope to see you all in Israel as soon as the better. And let's go to the what I want to show you today. And I will introduce it. Let's see, we have sound. Okay. Okay. The presentation is called All the New Pioneering in the Northwest Negev. It's an area we will go and visit today. And it's a very interesting area. And the presentation will tell you everything you want to know about this area in Israel. And I'm sure you will also want to visit this place after you see the presentation. Okay, so let's go. My name is, like was said, Noam Tamir, and like it was told, I'm on my third career, enjoying it very much as a tour guide. Even in the time of the COVID and the Corona time, we are still finding ways to work, only with Israelis, no tourists, but we are hoping for the tourists to come. And when will come, of course, we will enjoy more. We're going to talk today about an area that is in the south of Israel, what we call the Negev area. The Negev is almost 60% of the land of Israel. It's an area which is defined as desert because we have less than 10 inches of rain a year.
So no, and the slide has not changed.
Okay, right, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, better. Thank you.
Okay, now it's okay? Changed?
Yep. That's good, yes.
Okay. Right. So we're talking about today about the area in the Negev, which as you understand, the Negev is the south of Israel. 60% of the land of Israel is desert, defined as desert because we have less than 10 inches of rain a year in those areas. Negev is like 40%, and we have also the Judean desert and the area of the Jordan Valley, which doesn't have a lot of rain, although today it's a rainy day, by the way. And the area looks as it looks in the picture, okay? And we want to travel a little bit to the northwest of the Negev area, which is very close to the Gaza Strip. And the area that you see here in red, that's the area we're going to talk about. It's part of the Gaza envelope that you are all familiar with. And it's an area that is a lot in the news. As you can see here from the Google Earth, you can see I try to point out exactly where the area is, and it's the area that is, most of the area is attached to the Gaza Strip. And if you can see, it's an area that is very agriculture, and we'll talk about the agriculture in this area. Now, the area is also called the Eshkol Regional Council, and it's not, it doesn't look like a big area, but if you take it in, if you measure the area, you understand we're talking about 250,000 acres, which is something like 5% of the land of Israel. In this area, we have 32 kibbutzim, moshavim, villages, okay, and with the population of around 17,000 in this area. Also, this area is responsible for 60% of all the vegetables that are grown in Israel. It's amazing how such a small area is responsible for so much vegetables. Now, it's not so far from the center of Israel. The center of the council is about 75 miles from Tel Aviv. It's 50 miles from Ashdod, about 40 miles from Ashkelon, and about 30 miles from Beersheva. So it's not far to travel. It's about an hour and a half time. Takes you about an hour and a half to travel from Tel Aviv all the way to the center of the area. And the area is famous. It's going to be very popular for Israelis and also for tourists at the end of January into the February, because as you can see, we have a beautiful flower that grows there. I hope I'm saying it right. It's called anemone. Anemone flowers, which blossom at the end of January into February. And we have like a big festival, which is called the Red South, which is all over around this area, and thousands of people come to visit and to see the flowers. It's also an area which is famous for some parks that we have there, like here we have the Besor River Park. The River Besor is a flood river. Usually it's dry, but it has small amount of water all year, but usually it gets filled with floods, and we're expecting a flood tomorrow. Another thing that you all know about this area is it's famous not for the good reasons, because it's been attacked a lot of times. Any problems?
No,
It's
somebody
under
just
attack
unmuted
by
themselves. I'm taking care of it.
It's been attacked by the Palestinians from the Gaza Strip a lot of times, because it's next to the Gaza Strip, and you know we have the problem with the firing, with the balloons that make fires and so on. So you hear about the area a lot in the news. We want to talk about today about pioneering, and we want to define what's pioneering, and it's you understand it's something that is done by individuals or by a group, and the term usually refers to an action concerning the beginning of settlement and or arrival in a new area for the purpose of its examination or construction, research, or new development. And here you can see nice pictures of pioneers in the north of Israel in 1912. When we imagine pioneers, we think of them as they are dressed like that, working in the fields. Now, when we want to talk about this area, we always, we first, as Jews or Israelis, first we look upon the Bible to see what's written about this area in the Bible. And the only thing I found in the Bible which relates to the area we are going to talk about is a story that goes all the way back to the time of King David. And we call this time like the Judges and the Israelites. It's between the times when the Jews are returning from Egypt, which is around minus 1,200, until around the year 2 or 3, minus 7 100. That's the times which we call the settlement time and first temple time. And in this time, we have a story about King David, who is going to the city of Ziklag. And when he comes there, he understands that the city were attacked by the Amalek. And the Amalek, not only that they took all the money and all the important things from the city, they also took two of King David's wife. So he decided to find them and to get everything back. And he has to go all the way to the southwest of the land of Israel, to the area we are talking about. But there he comes to a river which is called the Bsor River, and it's all been told in the book of Samuel in chapter L. And it says that he comes upon the river that you see here. It's the Bsor River, and he's a little bit afraid to cross because he's not familiar with the land that is over the river. And he finds a young boy who was left out by his owners, that were some of them from the Amalek who attacked him. And he guides him into the land he is not familiar with, and helps him to win over his wives and all his money and get everything back. So we understand that this part of land was probably not familiar to the Jews because they didn't live there. And when we check something which is defines the land of the Jews since the time they came from Egypt up to the time of the first and the second temple, we understand that there is a mitzvah which is defining the area which we call Breita de Tchumin, which explains to you what was the area of the Jews when they lived in the land of Israel. So the Breita defines the territory occupied by the Israelis upon their entry into the land of Israel, and where Jews lived during and after first and second temple. And when we draw this line on the map, we see that the area we're talking about is outside of that area that the Jews lived in. That's why nothing happened here, and nothing is connected if we keep looking in the Bible for it. So we understand that we have to go a little bit further in time, and we're going to the Byzantine time, or what we call the Byzantine period. And if you look at again at the chart of that says what happened in the land of Israel in the last 4,000 years, we see that we are talking about the Roman and Byzantine time, a period that began around minus 63 and went all the way up to 638. That's the time when the Romans were ruling the land of Israel, and the Byzantine. The Byzantine is after the Romans converted into Christianity, so it's called the Byzantine time. So we're talking about a period of about 700 years. And in that period, we have something that shows us that the Jews lived in the area there. And I understand you talked about this thing, but I'll try to remind you about this place. And we're talking about an area which resides next to three kibbutzes, En HaShlosha, Nirim, and Nir Oz. And in this area, they decided to build a new road to Kibbutz Nir Oz. But if you look at the junction, you can see that there is a small diversion. The road wasn't built straight. And the question is why? The reason is that when the caterpillar began to working on the ground, he hit something. And when they looked and see what he hit, they found there is a building there, the ruins of a building. And they understood that the ruins of the building that we see here in the picture is an ancient synagogue in a place called Ma'on, okay, next to the kibbutz of Nirim. And the KKLJNF has taken the place. And as you can see, some people contributed to the building roof over the ruins of the synagogue. And in the synagogue itself, they found, as you can see, a beautiful mosaic floor. And you can see how the synagogue was built. And the floor was in the main room of the synagogue. And at the end of the room, we have a place where they used to put the Torah, okay? And also the building is in the direction of Jerusalem, okay? And when you look on the floor, you can see symbols, and the symbols are all connected to Judaism. And by the way, the group that you see here is workers from all over the world who work in a health place in Israel. We visited there about a year and a half ago. And you can see that the symbols, part of the symbols, are symbols which we consider to be very, very Jewish, like the menorah or the lions or things that were used in the temple itself. And outside, we also found something which looks like that collects water, and in the middle we have something which is called a mikveh. So it's not only the symbols; it's definitely a synagogue. Now, if you look at the symbols themselves, you see that in the upper side we have a menorah, and there is nothing more Jewish than a menorah. And it's facing towards Jerusalem, and we have a mikveh, so we have all the proof that it's a synagogue. But what's a synagogue doing over there in an area that we didn't know about? So to our help comes something which is called the Map of Madaba. And the Map of Madaba, we're talking about Madaba. Madaba is a small town in Jordan. And in that town, we have a beautiful church, a nice Catholic church. Now, when they built the church, this church that you can see here, the entrance to the church, when they built the church, they built it on ruins of an earlier church, a church from the Byzantine time. And when they looked at the ruins, they found on the floor a map. And here you can see all those people standing around, something that was made from mosaic, and it's a map that is describing the land, the Holy Land, and also the land on the other side of the Jordan River. And here you can see that the people taking pictures of the map. And today in the crypta, okay, in the cave or the underground of the church, we have this beautiful mosaic map, which not all of it survived, not all of it stayed. So we have only parts of the map. Now, if you take the map, you look at it like this, you get descriptions of a lot of places in the land of Israel. Now, the map is from west to east, not like the maps we have today from north to south. So what we did, we turned it a little bit around, and we compared it to a map that you are all familiar with, the regular maps from north to south. And what you have here, in those colors, in the brown colors, is what is left from the map. And you also have the mentioning of all the cities here and all the places. Now, in the map itself, there is one unique area, which you can see here. It's Jerusalem. Jerusalem is in a different scale than all of the map. If, let's say, the map is in one scale, the Jerusalem map is in a much, much, much larger scale. Lower scale. So it shows more details. And if you look at the map of Jerusalem, this is what you see. And in order to understand what you see here, basically you see here Nablus Gate. You see it's called Bab el Amud, okay, the gate of the pillar, and you can see the Via Dolorosa. The Cardo of Jerusalem here, and you can see it. Remember, it's from the Byzantine time, so it's talking about Christianity. We have here the famous church, okay, the church where Christ was buried. And here you can see there is an index showing you what you see on the map, okay, from the Damascus gate, or as we call it, the Nablus gate, because it leads to Damascus or Nablus. You can see where we have the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and another church which was called the Near Church, and so on. Now, if you look at number seven, it's written here the Haram el Sharif, or the Temple Mount, which on the Byzantine time was empty. Nothing was on it. Okay, only later on you will have things on it. So if you take the map of Madaba, and we are trying to return to the synagogue that we found, we see that the synagogue is in a place, in a city called Menois, okay, or as we call it in Hebrew, Ma'on. Now, if you look even closer to the map, you see it's written Madavana is now Manois, okay? We call it Ma'on, okay? And so Madavana is now Manois, and there is a mentioning of a small town, a Christian town, and we understand today that the synagogue was a neighborhood, was part of a Jewish neighborhood in that town, which was full of people who were buying and selling and so on. They were rich enough as a community to build a synagogue. So here we get an answer to why do we have a synagogue over there, and we understand that there was a town around. Now, from that time, for almost 800 years, nothing happened in that area. After the Muslims conquer the land of Israel, there is a lot of people who are living or fleeing out of the land of Israel because the taxes are very high, and the Muslims do not like the Christians and do like the Jews. So the land is nobody stays on that land, and fewer people only stay on that land. And the next time we hear about the area over there is in the Ottoman period, which begins around 1516. And the Ottomans were here for about 500 years. And in that time, the area is filled with only a small amount of people, mostly Bedouins. And the rise begins only towards the end of that period, towards the time of the First World War. Now, a lot of Jewish people were passing in the area, and some of them were very interested in buying land because land was very cheap in that area, and some of it had connection to things in the Bible like Beersheva and so on. But the Ottomans had a policy not to sell to people, only to those who were Ottoman citizens. And so we see that during the end of since the rise of Zionism from 1882 towards the end of the century, we understand that if all over the land of Israel, almost 100,000 acres were bought between 1882 until 1917, when the British conquered the land of Israel. Only 2.5% of that, only 2,500 acres were bought in the Negev, mostly by private people. And I have an example for you about a purchase like that. We're talking about here about the rabbis of Babylon, Iraq. Those are the rabbis who were studying and serving in Iraq, and especially they were staying in Baghdad. And from Baghdad, they were sent by their leader to be the rabbis in a lot of places where Jews were living. And one of them was called Rabbi Shalom Dangor, and he was sent to be the Rabbi of Sweats. Sweats is where the Suez Canal is. It's a city in the east of Egypt, and he was traveling from Baghdad to Suez back and forth, using that time to visit the holy places in Israel. And we know that he made around 8 travels between the two cities. And during one of his tours, he came to the city of Gaza, and he convinced the Bedouins to sell him a small piece of land in the area that we are talking about. So we are talking about a few hundred acres that he bought in a place that was named after him. It was named the lands of Rabbi Shalom Dangor. Later on, the Jewish organization like the JNF, they took over the land and built their place, and we will see about this place later on. Now, you understand that the rabbi he owned the land, but he did nothing with it. And as you can see from, if you look at the picture here, you see the small kibbutz was built here later on in 1946. You can see it was just an area of sand, okay, part of the desert. That's all. Now it all changed after the British conquered the land of Israel. Began the what we call the period of the British Mandate, which began in 1917 and lasted until 1948, until the War of Independence. And if we look at it in the time we're talking about from 1917 to 1948, and this is the time where most of the changes, most of the things happened in this area concerning Jewish pioneerism all around. And we talk about, first of all, about private people that kept on buying land in that area. And we have the story of Chaim Ben Yair, who not only that he bought lands all around in a lot of places, he also made the attempts to bring population, to bring people and into two places that he built. This was a very interesting try, but the lack of water and the lack of ability to work there made it almost impossible to bring people over there, and the places were deserted. But again, Jewish organizations knew about his purchases and took over all of the lands that he bought. Now, here you can see nice pictures of Chaim Ben Yair traveling in the area. Here you can see on the left that his car could not keep on going. They had to push it. And he was checking the places where the lands that he bought and so on. And it's a very interesting story, and it's not the only story about Jewish people who lived in the land of Israel. By the way, he lived in Gaza, in the city of Tzef. He was a merchant. He was making a lot of money over there from import and export. And he bought the land. Later on, after the Jewish organizations took the land that he owned, he sued them, and he got some money afterwards for the land that he purchased. And you can see here on the map, you can see all the areas that he bought from Gaza along the Psor River all the way to Beersheva. And at least 2 or 3 of the places that he bought, the Jewish organization used to build new kibbutzes all around. When we look in the years, what happened from 1917 until 1948, we can see that the Jewish organizations and also had problems putting people in what we call the Negev area. And until 1945, there were only 11 settlements in that area. The first was Negba. They settled in 1939. Then we have Dorot, Gat, and Gvaram. And we know that Dorot, they tried to settle even in the beginning of the 20th century, but they couldn't hold there. And we also have, during the World War II, we have 3 new settlements that were built. Of course, the one called settlements by the Jews at that time, they came to the British and told them that because they own the lands around there, they need to put a place which we call the Observatories in order to see, to check and to investigate the land, the amount of rain that they have a year, the winds, and so on. So it was basically a place for checking the weather or things around the land. The British allowed for each place to have 12 people. Of course, we had more people than 12, and later on we even had women and children and everything. And until the end of the world, there were established more kibbutzes all around. And you can see we had 4 during 1943, 4 more. And also Ruchama was in 1944. But at the end of the Second World War, there were only 11 places. Now, a place I want to tell you the story, how we built this place, is Gvulot. Gvulot is a land that, if you look at it today from the satellite, you can see it's a village, a beautiful village with a lot of agriculture all around. And but it didn't look like that on the time when the the new people came to live there. And we have a book that tells us about the first people who came to the land, and they tell the story. They say the cars shook, and occasionally the wheels sank in the sand. They got off, cleaned out of the wheels, pushed and drove until they sank again. And then again, they got off and cleaned and pushed and drove and sank again. And the road is long. And suddenly, somewhere nowhere, in the heart of the desert, Asahel was the guy leading them. He was from the KKLGNF, ordered to stop just in the middle of the desert. We have arrived, he said. The friends look around and saw nothing but golden sand full of the eye. This is where your kibbutz will be established, said Asahel. You are privileged to be the first Hebrew settlement in the Negev. So this is the story of one of the guys who came with Asahel. And in a few days, they built a tower which can protect them, and some buildings around, and a fence that will protect them. And they began doing agriculture, looking for water. They had a small place where they could collect water, and they bought water from the Bedouins all around. And you can see on the right side in the bottom a truck bringing some food to the place. And you can see somebody that is planting. And if you look at the picture a year later where we planted, it's a picture taken from the same place. And you can see that in the sand, in the desert, if you combine water and sand, you can grow almost anything you want. It's until today what they do in that area. And here you can see they are growing vegetables. Okay, so in the same place, the two pictures were taken. And you plant trees. Of course, you plant orchard trees, and you have fruits. And you even have time to have good time. Like you see these two girls taking pictures, sending. Okay, this is Posky and June Levinson. They took some pictures to send it to their parents, who are probably not in Israel at that time, to show them where they live and what they do. Today.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. Hi. Hello.
Any problem?
Don't worry about it. Keep going. If everyone could please, Edna, if you could please remain muted. It interrupts the program. Thanks.
Today, this site, we try to remember the history, and you can see we left it as it was in 1948. Some bullets hit the building because it was attacked by the Egyptians, but we can still have the tractor from that time and the bakery and so on. So it's a place you can visit and see how it was, when the first settlers came, how it looked like. Now, from 1945 until the 1948 is a period that we call on the way to independence. And this is more controlled and more influenced by the Jewish organization leading to independence. And of course, if you want to have more settlers, if you want to have more pioneers in the area, you need water. So the essential thing you need is water. If you don't have water, you can't have life. Because, if you want to live there, you need water, you need food, you need the stones to build the houses, and you need the roads that you can go to the center and so on. So water was essential, and when they had water problems, they called Professor Yehuda Leo Picard. He was an expert in finding water. And Professor Picard, he began walking on the hills. He was walking from here to there, measuring, doing things. Suddenly he stopped and said, dig here. And that's what you see, the drilling that is made over there. And they found an enormous amount of water under the hills over there. This is what we call water from the past, because it is water that is collected over thousands of years under the ground. And they found out that the reservoir has an enormous amount of money, which you can give water to all the villages and all the kibbutzes that you build all around. So of course, the water were found in Nir Am, that's in the north part of the area, And from there, they built two lines of water, two pipelines that they were taking the water to the villages that they had already in that area. So here you can see in the pictures how they built a pipeline which gave life to all those places. Now, if you have water, so it means you can enlarge the number of the places that you can live in. Okay, you can have more kibbutzes, more moshav, more everything you want. And on the other hand, you have a problem because the Bedouins or the locals who live over there are trying to interfere with your decisions to bring more people to the area. And a lot of the times the pipes were damaged. So you build what we call the water patrol. Okay, some trucks and some soldiers who walk along the pipeline or drive along the pipeline and check that everything is okay. Also guard the workers who fix the pipelines. And this was a mission given to the Palmach Brigade from 1946 to into the war. And if you have, like we said, we have the pipeline. So let's use the water. And what happened that over one night, on the end of the end of Yom Kippur, 1946, we said that we had until then only 11 places where people lived. On one night, we doubled it to 22. And the story about the doubling of the number of places where Jews lived in that area, especially when the British did not allow to do it, it takes us all back to something we talked about in the previous presentation. It's called the Night of the Bridges, which was in June 1946. This was made by the Haganah because to protest against the British decision to close the land of Israel to Jewish immigrants after the Holocaust. So the Haganah organized bombing 13 bridges that were connecting Israel, the land of Israel, to the countries next to it, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and Egypt. Some of them were train bridges, some of them were car bridges, and it was a very successful operation. The British, of course, retaliated. Okay, they couldn't leave it open like that, and what they did is at the end of June they did what is called Operation Assaf. We call it the Black Saturday because on that day they arrested a lot of the Jewish leaders all over Israel, and also searched for members of the Haganah, Etzel and Lehi, and for guns and ammunition all over Israel. And for us, as for the Jewish movements, and it was a very, very bad day because a lot of people were captured and a lot of guns were taken. So we call it the Black Saturday. Now the Jews said, okay, we are not leaving it open, and we are going to do something from our side. And what they did is they planned that at the end of the day of Yom Kippur, on the 6th of October, 1946, it was something they planned for a few months. They brought the man and the woman and all that is necessary to all the villages that were existing. And from there, they went out, and from almost every place, they built 2 new ones. As you can see here on the map on the right, for example, here from Gvulot, they built Urim and Nirim, and they did it in the night, into the morning, into the next day. And the doubling of the number of villages in the Negev, as you can see, was a game changer, because if until then there were not a lot of places that the Jews lived in the Negev, right now it filled the map, and that's what meant the doubling of the number of the villages, and of course doubling the number of the population in that area. This was the British could not deal with that, and they left all the places to stay. Here I'm going to show you an example of Nirim. Remember the Dangor land that the Rabbi Shalom Dangor bought? So here we can see that they are getting ready, and they are bringing the trucks to the kibbutz, and remembering from the time when they were sinking in the sand, they brought tractors to take the trucks all the way to where they wanted, and of course they brought a lot of young men, young women to do the works around there. And you can see that they managed in a few days to build the places to live in, and to build a fence all around, to bring water and so on, and even met with the locals. On that time, it was they had good relations with the locals. This was prior to the war, and you see on the first day they meet the Bedouins that live all around. They all sit together, have some tea or coffee. And on that time, the relationship were very good. But at the end of the day, you can see that they have the places where they live. They have a fence around to defend them, and you can see some of the agriculture that they are doing between the fences, so they can make a small living. But you can see this is the land that the rabbi bought. It's all around a big area of desert. Nowadays it looks different, and we'll show it in pictures in a minute or two, but you can see it was all nothing around. This brings us to 1948, the War of Independence. And when the war begins, first of all, we have to take care of all the people who live there. And also we have to guard the water. You remember we talked about the water line security that was needed, and this brings us to the first soldiers that died in the war, in the Independence War, and this thing happened very close to Gvulot. We remember we talked about Gvulot, one of the first places that they lived there, and if you look at the aerial photo of the place where the battle took place, it's called Gvulot Junction. It's not far from the kibbutz Gvulot, and you can see here it's all today it's all green and has a lot of agriculture all around. But on that time it was an empty area. Just there was a village over there, Sh'ut, that's the name of the village where some Arabs lived. And we are talking about, if you see here the picture, we see the junction. And on the picture on the right, you can see the junction from a closer part. And you can see on the right here, where I drew in yellow, you can see that it's something that looks like trees. It's not trees, it's a cactus. It's cactus. And here in the picture, you can see it's like a big fence made from cactus. And this is where something very bad happened, because we have 6 soldiers that were killed in a battle that happened over there. What happened that they were coming out from Gvulot, and they were supposed to walk along the track of the pipeline and to see that everything is okay, but they made a wrong turn or made a mistake in the navigation. And they went too close to a village of the Arabs who lived there behind the fences in Sh'ut. And when the Arabs saw them, they began attacking them. The soldiers had some guns, and the commander of them, his name was Asaf Shachnai. We see his picture on the right. He was 19 years old at that time. He was the commander of the 9 people. 8 of them were men, 1 was a woman. He ordered the 2 more men to join him and to defend against the Arabs, and he ordered the other 6 to escape, to run away and to try to return to Gvulot. 3 of them managed to jump into the cactus branches, and they were crawling inside. The Arabs were fearing from the cactus, so they didn't go in. So the 3 guys managed to crawl and get away and run away and call for help. The other 3, including Miriam, they began running and trying to escape from the Arabs. Miriam, she was very good in sports. She was what we call a jada. Jada means a woman that they can compete the boys, a woman that can compete the men, a woman who was very good in sports, and she was a very good soldier. She could do everything that like riding horses or everything that the men were able to do, she was doing, sometimes even better from them. So the other three were running, but they were shot by some of the Arabs who were riding on horses. Miriam's managed to escape. She was injured, but she managed to escape to a small cave. But the Arabs came over there and shot her. And well, on the next day, when the British came and returned the bodies, we understood that all the bodies were hurt, and maybe even they were harassed by the Arabs before they died, and so on. Now, after the battle, Assaf was memorized in an operation called Operation Assaf, which was for the conquest of most of the Negev. But Miriam Shachor is a different story. And when Miriam Shachor, what happened to her, led the leaders or the commanders of the Israeli army to make a decision, a very important decision. And they said that the woman will not participate in what we call a combat, or let's say a combat that was planned, or if they are in the place which is attacked, okay, they will help the men and everything, but they will not serve in units that are attack units or units that go into battles. And this was a very hard decision, but because of the death of Miriam Shachor, this decision was made. And women who until then were participating in some of the actions had to stop, and they were used, or they were serving only in things like medical help, or in places where there were only a few men, they were helping the men in terms of defense and so on. But this all changed because of a young woman. Her name is Alice Miller, who in 1995, she wanted to go to the pilot course of the Israeli Air Force, and she was refused. So she said, well, if you are refusing me, I will go to the High Supreme Court and try to change it. And that's what she did. And the Supreme Court has ruled by a majority of opinions that not allowing women to be admitted to a pilot course is just because they are women is prohibited, and it's not constitutional. So as a result, the order was changed, and it was issued that the military authorities allowed Alice Miller to try to go into the pilot course of the Israeli Air Force. And they also submitted it, they also made it that the woman can serve in almost all of the combat units in the Israeli army. A small story about Alice Miller. Alice Miller, on that time when she was trying to get into the pilot course, she was an officer in the aeronautical branch in the Israeli headquarters. And I was working with her on that time, and we were we were talking a lot about her decision, and we were all for it, and we were all trying to help her. And after she won, she came to me, and we were working one day in Tel Nof Air Base, and she said, I won, and now I'm going to the pilot course. So I told her, Alice, I'm very happy for you. I'm very happy that you succeeded, because here it's a gate that you open to all the women in Israel. But I want to tell you something personal. And she said, what do you want to tell me? It's a happy day for me. I said, I don't want to disappoint you, but I have a feeling that they won't take you. And she said, why? Why won't they take me? I said, look, if I check what's very similar between you and Miriam Shachor, I see that you are all a very, very independent woman, but not only independent, you like to try everything. You like to do everything. You like to take risks. You like to do everything. She was a scuba diving. She was a She was a diver. She was she was parachuting. She even flew planes. She's original from South Africa. And you remind me very much of Miriam Shachor. But the problem is that when the Air Force is selecting their pilots, they don't want to have people who take risks over the limit. And you are one like that. And unfortunately, that's why they won't let you do the pilot course. And that's what happened. That's what happened. So I said, I'm disappointing you. I really hope for you, but I know that you are opening a gate to all the women. And you can see here Alice Miller as she is today. She lived a lot of years in India. She came back to Israel, and she's still a leader, and she gives lectures about her experience and everything. But if you look today at the Israeli army, you see that we have women in almost every role in the Israeli army. Of course, soldiers in combat positions. We have pilots. We have women in the Navy. We have women all around the army, and we are very proud of that. So this is all because of Alice Miller, okay, Miriam Shachor and Alice Miller. Now, let's return a little bit to Nirim. Remember, we built the place, and now we want to see what happened in the war. Of course, the war was something that they knew about, so they just built an underground kibbutz. As you can see here, they are working very hard for a few months, and everybody is working, also having good time on the place, but building the place and getting it ready for the war. And you can see, you remember the picture that we saw before with the fence. Now you see there are two fences, and you can see it's all ready with the bunkers and with the connecting between the bunkers and everything ready for when the Egyptians will come and try to take over the place. It will be very hard for them. And that's what happened in the 15th of May, 1948. The Egyptians attacked. By the way, their commander in the attack was Gamal Abdel Nasser, who later on was the president of Egypt. And you can see the place stood for a few months. The Egyptians could not get it. They did not succeed taking over. And after a few months of fight in what we called before the Operation Assaf, this place was secured, and people could come out of the bunkers. And if you see in the bunkers, they had a sign here in the middle of the bunker. In the bunker, they had a sign which said, "Not the tank will win, the men will win." And every day when they went in to get the commands and to get some food, they read it, and they knew that if the man is going to fight about the place, he will win. And not the tanks and not the artillery, nothing. The men will win. Okay, that's what happened. After the battle, you can see they are taking nice pictures. After a few months, that only by planes they could get supply. They were not connected to the other places, and they stood. And this is the soldiers who fought and won the war over there. And when they look outside of what was left from their building, they can see the fields that they're working and will work again the next time. Now today, if you want to visit this place, which is called the Old Nirim, or we call it Dangor, you see it's next to three kibbutzes, which are just next to the what we call the Gaza Strip border. By the way, in this area, this is where very close to this where I pointed. This is where Gilad Shalit was kidnapped, if you remember. And today, when you visit the place, there is only some ruins that were left and some memorial things that were put to the soldiers who were killed there. The kibbutz itself moved to a new place. And again, in the memorial place, you have a place where you can take a view of the area around. And again, you have the same sign, not the tank will win, the man will win. Okay? Now, after the Independence War, of course, we have building the country. And when we say building the country, it means bringing a lot of immigrants, a lot of new people to that area. And we defined about 5 stages of bringing people and building new places all around the area. First of all, we have the first 12 years when Israel is growing from 600,000 people into around 3 million people in a short time. So you have to put people in places all around, and you bring a lot of immigrants, and you bring soldiers that finish serving in the army to build new kibbutzes, and you see a lot of new places all around. For example, this is the kibbutz Magen. Okay, kibbutz Magen. You can see it begins on the area which is a desert, but now it's a very, very famous and big kibbutz in the south of Israel. Also, you build a moshav. Moshav is a different way of settlement where it's more private. And you can see here, even David Ben-Gurion, our prime minister, he comes to help build fences around the moshav, which is called Miftachim, and it's also in the area over there. Later on, from 1961 to 1970, we have a first stage of development of the area. We don't have a lot of places built on that time, but one of them, they brought people who were originated from Algiers. And those people, they also brought their culture and everything. And you can see here 3 people that were born in the area, and they bring in the culture, and they also made a very, very famous song, which is called Pa'amonei HaMashiach, okay, the bells of the Messiah. Let's hear a little bit what they wrote. So they are from Talmei Eliyahu, one of the places over there. And again, we go to the second time that they're trying to develop the area, and more places are built over there. And you can see this is like the village of Zohar, where again, they bring new immigrants. And that time we have immigrants coming from Africa, immigrants coming from North Africa, from Asia, and so on. So first you build them something temporary until they build their own houses. And when you go into that area today of Zohar, you can see that they are growing vegetables all around and large fields, and it's a beautiful place to live in and make a living. But it wasn't like that in the beginning. And then again, we have what's a game changer in that area is the peace agreement from Egypt, where we had to retreat from the Sinai Peninsula, and we had to take a lot of places that were in the peninsula that where people lived in, and move it into this area. So we have like 7 or 8 places built in those years after the peace agreement with Egypt. And what I wanted to show you as a symbol of that movement of places is what we call the Steel Division Memorial near Gush Shalom, near in the middle of that area. And we're talking about that the original Steel Division Memorial was near Yamit. Yamit was a city, not for about 40 miles west to the place that is today. And it was a very, very important memorial because it was a memorial for the soldiers killed in that brigade in the 67 war, in the 73 war. But when the Israelis signed on the peace treaty, it was understood that this memorial will not stay. You see, it was a very big memorial with a lot of pillars all around, and on each pillar there was something from metal from one of the army vehicles. And it was, as you can see here, it's described by Life magazine. You remember there was a magazine like that? The Life magazine gives a description of the area, and it shows a picture of the people going and seeing for the last time the memorial. Now, later on, the Israelis blew it up, the monument of Yamit. And this is how it looks today after it was it exploded. And they decided to build a new one in the area that we are talking about. And today you can visit this place. It stands in the corner where three borders meet. You can see from there Egypt, you can see the Gaza Strip, and you are standing in Israel. So it's three countries in one ticket, as we say. And this is how it looks today. They even put more pillars all around. There is a 80 feet high tower that you can climb on, okay, about 120 stairs. And here you can see from pictures that we are now going up to the air, you can see how the pillar looks, okay? You can see people standing on top of it and the pillars all around. And this is how it looks like small needles all around, okay, in the middle of the agriculture area. And like I said, when you come to this place, you stand on top of it, you see all the area around. The fifth stage of building the country in that area was after the Gush Katif evacuation, you know, the places that we retreated from in the Gaza Strip. And the children of those who built the villages in the Gaza Strip, they decided to build they decided to build new places in that area, which was, of course, was all sandy, and it was a desert, and this was an area that the army was using for training. It was given by the army to the new people who came there. And this is how it looks today, okay? One of the places is called Shlomit. This is the community center, still under construction, still building it. But if you look at the first place that was built, Moshav Naveh, you can see it, all the greenery all around, and it's blossoming, and they all work in agriculture and work in the cities all around, in the places. And the biggest of the places there is called Bnei Netzarim, the sons of Netzarim, who used to be in the Gaza Strip. And you can see they have a beautiful, a very big synagogue, and they also have beautiful houses over there. And a lot of people want to come and live there. And even on the left, you can see me guiding a group of people who came to visit and to see these beautiful places. So we talked about the Eshkol Regional Council, which combine water and sand into an agriculture. And remember, we wanted to talk about pioneering, and we defined what's pioneering, like going into a new land. And if you have any questions, I would love to answer.
Wow. Well, thank you very much. Took us on a fairyland tour of another universe, it seems, for many of us, and we've really hung with you. Thanks so much. Elena, how would you like to ask the questions, and Noam, you can answer them?
Are you talking to me, Steve?
I'm talking to you, Ilana, yes.
Oh, sure, I can do that. Hold on one second. Let me just get to the first one. People are asking about, will a recording of this program be up? And it will in a few days. It will be on either tinyurl.com/VFIeducates2, or you can go to YouTube and type in Volunteers for Israel, and it will be the most recent video we post. First question I see is from Deborah. In what year was the synagogue discovered? I'm not sure.
If I remember right, 1957.
Okay.
1957, if I remember right, when they were trying to build a new road to Niroz.
Okay, great. And then the next question is same from Deborah. In what year was the synagogue? Oh wait, did I just discovered? Where is Mason on the larger map?
Ma'on.
Mason. She wrote Mason. Deborah, if you could unmute yourself, just let me know what you mean.
Yeah, Ma'on. It's Ma'on.
Oh, Ma'on. Okay.
An autocorrect or something.
Got it. I was wondering.
Yeah. It's next to the kibbutz of Nirim. It's in the center of the area, on the very close to the main road leading from Sderot all the way to the border. It's very easy to find.
Thank you.
Mark has a question. So if Chaim Ben Yair purchased land in what is now Gaza, then why did Sharon leave Gush Katif? I understand that he maybe wanted to isolate the Arabs there, but the land was in places Jewish.
First of all, we have a problem not only in Gaza. We have problems also in Jordan and in Syria, in Egypt. We have a lot of lands that were bought by Jewish people. That, of course, we claim it. But, for example, in the Golan Heights, or even in areas that are east from the Golan Heights, we have a lot of land that purchased even by very rich people like the Baron Rothschild. And of course, we have claims about it. And also, yes, we had lands belong to Jewish people in Gaza. You know, they had a plan in 1903. There was a plan that they wanted to build a place for the Jews in Rafiach. Rafiach is part of the Gaza Strip, and the Jewish organization bought thousands of acres in the area of Rafiach. Okay, there was a plan to build a city for the Jews, so they can say that they are very close to the land they claim. So we know about this purchase. For example, I can tell you that my father's grandmother, she bought land in what we call today Gush Etzion. Now, after the Jordanians took over Gush Etzion, we don't know what happened to the land. Until today, we don't know. We know one thing for sure. We don't know exactly where was the land, but we know that the JNF people, they found about this land. They are not telling people who owns what. They took it all to their possession. And we know that the land, like Dan Gore's land, or like the land that Chaim Ben Yair bought, at the end, it belongs to the Jewish people. We don't know exactly what happened to the land that we bought. So my father and his brother, they were for years looking to find out where was the exact place, but they didn't find. So now we have to compromise and say, okay, it's a Jewish land, belongs to the Jews, and I hope the people of now. Every time I meet somebody from Gush Etzion, I say, you know, you're living on my land.
That's true. Harry asked, I heard recently that JNF was trying to plant trees at a Bedouin settlement, as the Bedouins were in pre-Israel and did not have title to land. Is there anything being done to recognize them by the government?
Now you're dragging me to something political, but I will try to answer.
You don't have to answer it if you're.
No, I won't go into politics. I'm saying this thing. It's not the JNF is the constructor. It's a government decision to protect government land. Now, remember, we are in Shnat Shmita. Remember, in Shnat Shmita, you know what's that definition. This means no planting. But in the rabbis allow planting if it's considered to keep your land and to build a fence. So that's the excuse that they use over there in order to protect government lands that the Bedouins will not take over. And it's a fight between the government and the Bedouins, and it broke into riots. That's basically what's going over there. If that's answered the question.
Thank you. Judy's asking, was Alice Miller recognized for paving the way for women in the IDF?
Sorry, what was the question?
Was Alice Miller recognized for paving the way for women in the IDF?
Oh, yes, of course. She published a book and she also lectures. She's very honored. Every place she goes, she's very honored for the fact that she made the big change. And until today, people are quoting about this decision of the High Supreme Court. And yes, she made a very big change, breaking the glass ceiling for women all over Israel, not only in the army.
Sharon is asking, were those settlements suddenly built called Tower and Stockade?
No. When we talk about those kind of way of building new places. This was something that we did with the British allowed us to do those kind of settlements, and this was ongoing between 1936 to 1939 when the Arabs were rebelling, and the British had an interest that the Jews will come and live in places that they want to guard from the Arabs, or to be involved in the places so they won't be attacked.
Okay.
So it's a different time.
There's a question. It's just, is Mikveh Ramon near this area? From Jeff.
Sorry?
Is this near Mikveh Ramon?
No. Mikveh Ramon is about an hour and a half drive from that area. It's much northern. It's closer to Tel Aviv. Like I said, it's about an hour 15 from Tel Aviv.
Great. So those are all the questions in the chat. If you'd like to unmute and ask Noam any questions, please feel free. I don't know if Julia's here. Is Julia here, Steve?
She was, and maybe she's not.
Okay. I just wanted to, before too many people left, I think, do you want to talk about the next program?
Sure.
Okay.
All I have to do is remember what it is. It's episode 127. I believe we have a young lady.
The 20th.
20th, rather. Yeah, I think, right. It'll be episode 127 on the January 20th. I believe we have a young lady speaking who was a deputy mayor of Jerusalem, who also is an attorney and who also has a rather lengthy resume of very interesting subjects. She was scheduled to speak with us, and then she had an emergency and she had to go visit her mother in Cyprus, and I believe she's back. And Julia's been tracking this closely, and I believe that's what's coming up next. So I forget her exact.
I can tell you, she'll be talking about how the diverse demographics both are at the core of problems in Israel, but also might be at the core of the solution.
Yeah, she'll be speaking from this perspective of somebody who actually had to govern and actually had to make decisions as an official in a municipality. And that's quite different than anything we've heard before in our lecture series. So kind of could be interesting. The lady has a very colorful background, and sounds good. So that's next week. The following week, on January 27th, we'll be presenting a fellow who is a entrepreneur, a scientist, an inventor, and I believe he invented something called the pill cam. And this is a little pill you take, ingest, and it has a camera in it, which watches the progress of your digestive system as it proceeds through your digestive system. He's the inventor. He'll explain all about his pill cam and how it works, and it should be interesting also.
Great. Thanks, Steve. That's on the 27th, and they're all at 2 o'clock. There's another question that Sharon is asking, Noam. What is the major city in the Eshkol area other than Beersheva?
Netivot.
Netivot, Sharon.
Yeah, Netivot. No, we have Sderot.
Right.
It's the area is like a triangle between Sderot and Netivot. Yeah, Sderot, Netivot, Ofakim.
Please feel free to.
Sderot is the nearest town. You have the train also coming over there.
I have a question. The military establishment headquarters in Tel Aviv is moving out towards Beersheva, or maybe has it already moved? Is there no? Yes. No.
Not as far as I know.
Okay, I thought. No problem.
Oh, we have all the military training that was done in the center of Israel moved to the south of Beersheva. That's what was done. Not the headquarters, the military training bases.
Ah, okay. I
had a question.
Yes.
The church, Madaba, you said. I once went to a church in Jordan and looked at the mosaic. And as I recall, we were up on a hill, and I thought we could look over and see the Golan. Is that the same church?
Well, Madaba is not far from Rabat Ammon, from Amman.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see the Golan Heights from there. but but remember that in a lot of churches all over the world we have mosaic floors. If it's a mosaic map, it should be Madaba, but I'm not sure you can see the Golan Heights from there.
Okay, thank you. Also, I years ago spent time with Menachem Perlmutter. Have you ever heard that name? He was supposedly the father of Israeli agronomy when I visited Beersheva and spent time with him at the farms there. He was a wonderful man.
Not familiar.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, agriculture is pioneering. We didn't talk about all the agriculture things around, but yes, a lot of inventions were made by people from over there. You know that today, you know how we grow strawberries? Have you ever seen how we grow strawberries here in Israel?
In big pots.
Yeah.
We grow it at the height of about
6 feet.
6 feet. So you can go under it and eat it. Okay.
That's hydroponics, no?
And you know why we grow it so high?
No.
So first of all, we have less insects, and second, it's easier to pick it up. You just walk and with your hands, okay? You pick it. This is the height.
Aren't they hydroponics?
The what?
Isn't that hydroponics? The strawberries?
Yes, it's also...
The roots are still at the bottom.
They also use different methods of giving water, and of course, when you grow it up there, you have more control about how much water you want and everything. And also, you know how we grow tomatoes or cucumbers? Mm-hmm. We grow them all the way up, okay? Not on the ground. So we can grow a lot of them in a small place because we do it in closed places. So we want a lot of heat in the place. Yeah. So we do it in a hot.
Is the aquifer still working, or do they get the water in the south by water supply from the north?
Nowadays, you should know that in Israel, almost 70 to 80% of the water that we use for agriculture, it's recycled water. So when you visit Israel, when you go to the hotels, you stay at the hotels in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem, please go every 2 hours to the shower, because the water that you use in the toilets, in the shower, they are recycled and moved to the south of Israel, and this is what we use for giving to the agriculture. By the way, everything we grow, they love more water which are a little bit salty, if you know that, okay? If you didn't know. So basically today, Israel, by the way, is a leader in the world in using recycled water. We recycle over 85% of the water we daily use. So in the Negev area, 70% of the water that we give to everything we grow, recycled water. And we have special systems, special pipes that carry the water from the center of Israel to the south of Israel, where it's welcomed because the water costs less to the farmers. That's why they love more the recycled waters. And every time you see in Israel a pipe in the color of purple, don't drink the water from the pipe. It's recycled water.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gray water.
Yeah. And by the way, Israel, of course, we don't have a lot of sources of water today. About 80% of the water we daily use for drinking and for showering and everything, it's desalinated water. Yeah. We desalinate the water from the Mediterranean.
Somebody said that the reason the cherry tomatoes are so tasty is because of the saline water, the salty water that came out of the aquifer.
It's true. That's it. It's true. We found out that most of the vegetables like salty water. For example, in the Arava, there is a big reservoir of water under the Arava, but it's a little bit salty water, and that's what they give. This is the water that they give to the vegetables.
Great. Do we have any other questions?
See, water is something. It's something else that you should talk about. Water for Israel it's a big issue. In Israel, water is a big issue.
We did have a presentation about number 30 or 40 from a water engineer. He was also an attorney, and he gave us a very legal rundown on the water situation. Maybe we should replay that someday. It's rather technical.
And that is sued you? No. You know the Jewish joke about the lawyer? No, you don't know?
No.
The Jewish woman is pregnant. She comes to the rabbi and she said, "What will I have?" The rabbi said, "Oh, you will have a son. He will be a big thief." He said, "What can I do?" He said, "Nothing." He comes and the next time he knocks on the belly and said, "Oh, you will have a daughter. She will be a prostitute." She said, "What can I do?" Nothing. Then she comes again and the rabbi starts to cry and yell. He said, "I'm very disappointed." He said, "Why? You'll have a son. Okay. He will be a lawyer." He said, "What's the problem with the lawyer?" "Oh, he's both a thief and a
prostitute."
He was what?
He's a thief and a prostitute.
Oh, a combination. I see.
Well, not Shakespeare.
All right. Well, great. Well, we've had a very interesting, enlightening discussion on a range of topics today. Thank you so much for joining us again for the second time. Hopefully we can do this more often. And I know the episode 123 that you did previously was very well received by a number of people. Personally told me that. So congratulations. And
afterwards.
May I ask a question?
Go ahead.
It's really about geography. A long time ago, I was on an ulpan, 1964, and we came from the Dead Sea, but by the south, because you couldn't go by Jerusalem. And we turned south, and we went up through into the mountains, and there was an artist colony. I remember buying like a stone with ships painted on it, and they used lirot back then. But would you know what little town that was? And then you go over it, and then you come down toward a lot, you descend. I don't know I can't figure out what town that was that they took us to. We spent the night there.
I believe you were in, look, it could be that if you came from the Dead Sea and you climb on the mountains, you came to Arad. Okay?
Uh-huh.
But if you, I believe it was Arad, or if you went further on to get to Eilat, maybe it was Mitzpe Ramon. Because in those two places, we have like artist colonies.
Maybe it was Mitzpe Ramon. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Your photographs were amazing. I'd never seen so many that I hadn't seen before. They were really good. Thank you for sharing.
Very enlightening.
Noam, everything else in the chat is people thanking you and saying how wonderful this presentation was and asking me if they can see it again later. And we already know that people have watched it online on our YouTube again and again. So thank you so much for coming again.
You have the recorder.
I have one question. I have a question.
Sure, Wayne, go ahead.
So the one picture of Kibbutz Magen, where I have some, I know people who pioneered there and still live there. Are there more pictures of Kibbutz Magen that I might be able to see?
In the presentation, I have only those, but I can tell you that if you look it up in the websites, there are a lot of more pictures of the first days and through the years of Kibbutz Magen.
Yeah, because she pioneered and still lives there. Yeah.
Now it's look completely different. It's all green around. It's a beautiful place.
And I was there a few years ago again, but yeah.
Yeah, all the area is very green and live, and now the best time, by the way, to visit the area is during the winter, because there are not many rain days over there. But on the other hand, everything is green and doesn't look like desert, so it's beautiful. All the way up to the end of until the summer begins, it's a beautiful place to visit.
Did they turn the soil or turn the, seasonally like farmers here do?
Yes.
turn the roots over and all that?
Yes, you do it. Especially, it depends on what you grow, but yes, you do it. And remember that the soil, we get it free from Egypt. You know, it's the sand.
The wind?
No, really. It's called
The wind.
the sand source is the Sahara Desert. Now, the Sahara Desert when it's windy, it brings all the sand up to the sky, and it's moving. It's moving towards Israel. Okay. Now, when it comes to Israel, it's the first time that the small pieces of the sand meet the humidity. When they meet humidity, they get heavier and they fall into the ground. So that's why all of that area is full of sand. It all comes from the Sahara. We have about 2 millimeters, which is something very tiny every year. Let's say in 10 years, you get like an inch of sand. If you don't do anything, you'll get an inch of sand after 10 years in every place. So all the time we get more and more sand. Now sand, if you combine sand with water, you bring water to the sand, you can grow everything you want. It's a good and fertile plant.
Who would have thought?
In Israel, we have sand for everybody. We have stones for everybody. By the way, I have a question for you. Let's see if you know it. What country in the Middle East imports sand?
Sand.
They want to what?
Sand?
Yeah, they import sand because when they want to build, they cannot use the sand that they have. So they have to import sand.
Abu Dhabi.
Qatar.
No, most of the countries all around there, but for especially Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia, which
Dubai.
all the countries desert,
Wow.
they have to import sand from Australia or New Zealand in order to build buildings because the sand is not good for building.
Structure. Oh, about that.
Interesting.
So they export oil.
Import sand.
And they
Import
import
sand.
sand.
Yeah, funny, but yeah.
Oh my. Oh.
Does anyone else have any questions for Noam?
Well, I hope the COVID dilemma in Israel slows down somewhat. We seem to be all going through the fourth or fifth waves together here.
No, it's a fifth wave. It's expected to get low in about 10 days or 2 weeks. We're still today we are almost doubling every day the number of sick people.
Yeah.
We had 2 days 20,000 a day. Now today it's almost 40,000. Yeah, and it's the Omicron. It takes only a second to get it. It's not like the Delta or before that. You had to be a few minutes with the person.
Yeah. Do you think it'll peak in a couple of days? Is that what you mean?
10 days, yes.
10 days from now, yeah. Yeah. Our peak here is probably more like the end of the month.
But I heard you're planning to come on March. That's a good time to come to Israel.
Thank you. We've done a lot of praying for that date. It's very complicated. And not only does Israel have to let us in and all, but now the IDF has to agree to put us to work. And with the base closures, that has become an issue. And so we're waiting for official. Oh, well, wouldn't be the first time. We're getting used to it after 2 years.
Who knows what will be.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, thank you so much again for joining us. And we look forward to Crossing Paths again. And we are continuing these season 3 of VFI Educates right through the end of March. And then we'll see where we are. And if it begins with a C, we'll probably still be hanging around. Meanwhile, we hope
I can tell you only one sentence that was said in a very famous movie.
Yeah.
Tomorrow is another day.
Yeah. Right. Casablanca, wasn't it?
How about the sun will come out tomorrow?
No, it's Gone with the Wind.
Gone with the Wind. Oh,
tomorrow is another day.
Da, 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 da,
before that, there is also something to remember when she's telling him, but Brett, what should I do with the farm? So he's telling me what every man tells his wife. Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Right.
Have you been watching Fauda? Does that play in
It's
Israel?
not on right now.
We don't have to watch. We have it every day.
Why
We're not good.
That's a good one.
We are watching your things right now. I'm watching Chick flick.
Chick flicks. All right. It is interesting the way the internet has balanced the world, that everybody has access to everything.
Yeah.
And I noticed Netflix is dubbing everything. I can't tell you how many Korean and Japanese shows I've seen in English. And I bet all the names sound, the voices are exactly the same, no matter what the show is.
But you know, in Israel, we have subtitles. We are hearing the original.
Yeah, we usually do, but now Netflix is pushing international stuff, and so they're automatically dubbing it. You can switch it back, but a lot of it's being dubbed so that Americans will take the leap and watch something from another country.
Yeah.
This is how my daughter learned Spanish from the TV.
Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you, Noam.
Okay, well,
Thank
great.
you.
Well,
So much.
we will wrap for this evening and begin our schmooze session, which lasts until 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. And you're all welcome to stick around or not and talk about whatever you want to talk about or not. And everything is on limits. So I'm going to switch us over and I'll terminate the recording at this point. It will appear within the next 24, 48 hours up as Ilana indicated up on YouTube to watch. And it is episode number 126. Great.
Guys, thank
Who
you
would
very
have
much.
thought?
It was
Thank
an
you
honor
so
for me.
much.
Bye.
Hi, thank you.
Laila Tov.
Bye.